Welcome back. It is time now for us to usher you into our big stories. And boy, is it big. Because it's so big, we're going to have two members of parliament joining us in the studio. But this morning, we have those members of parliament joining us to discuss myriad issues of national scope, everything in between, the most salient issues. We're about to discuss them right here. Of course, I am also here with Sweetie Abochi. And our guest this morning, Dr. Dickson Adomako Kissi. He is Member of Parliament for Soweto, together with Edward Bawa, who is Member of Parliament for the Bongo constituency. So when Soweto and Bongo meet, then Anya Soweto, yes, Anya Soweto. When Soweto and Bongo meet, what do you get? Boweto.
That's a good one.
Boweto. So we have the members of Parliament for Boweto in the studio this morning. Edward Bawa, Dr. Dickson Adomako Kissi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right. So, like we usually do here, and I'm sure Sweetie is on this with me. We'd like to find out about the state of your constituencies. What's the latest? What's happening there? As for Dr. Adomako Kissi, I know there's something always going on, especially with road projects, among others. I'll start with you. Brief comments before we get into the very salient issues. I'll start with you, Doc.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been quite a few weeks since I came on the show, so forgive me for that. But I'm happy to be here, sandwiched between yourself and Sweetie. It makes it very fun. Let me say that on the local level, Anya Soweto, we're hoping that more of our roads would be attended to. We're also hoping that our Agenda 111 will be completed in due course so that people will not have to leave our area to the regional hospitals.
Where is it located, the one in Anya Soweto?
The Agenda 111 for us is located behind the Municipal Assembly, which is at Antieku.
Okay, and, the famous Antieku.
Sometimes we say Nsumfa, between Nsumfa and Antieku. And it's a very exciting project. I'm really hoping that we can get it functioning before January.
At what level of completion?
Well, we're around 80%, but
80%.
With regards to installing medical equipment and things like that, I know that's going to be a huge aspect which might delay us, but I'm very hopeful and still excited. It's one of the biggest infrastructural additions to our constituency. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the updates. But in terms of the roads, which I know are usually topical in your constituency, any progress made there?
Yes, around the Pentecost University area, Lobnava, Israel, major upgrade. And I'm expecting that within the course of next month, they would get it tied. And that enclave, Israel, in fact, if I should show you the before and now, is night and day. And even the current state of the roads at Israel is fantastic and very motorable, and a huge upgrade to that area. And residents there are very thankful. They have seen tax money at work, and that is always very good for us. Yeah.
Well, we salute you for the good work, and it's heartwarming, especially for a member of parliament who's not returning. Your party decided to ask you, which I thought was because you're a fine gentleman, fine work. I've come to his constituency a few times, and you can see his passion. But of course, the grassroots decided not to. It's good to see you continue with the work. Edward Bawa, what's going on in Bongo?
Nothing.
This time, not Bongo.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Why?
Let me tell you something. You see, for God knows the past 6-7 years, there has not been serious activities in Bongo in terms of government interventions. And it is just a microcosm of a bigger picture of what is happening in the region. You are talking, for example, about issues about road. If you take the whole region, the two projects that this current government started were the Naga Road and that of the Bolga-Sirgo Road. They started them very seriously when it was just getting to the 2020 elections. The moment after the 2020 elections, they packed it bag and baggage and left. a major project that connects, what they call it, Bolga to Boko, which is supposed to connect to Burkina Faso. This was a project that was started by the previous government. As we speak now, the Brazilians have packed their stuff and left. So what is happening in Bongo is just, in terms of roads, it's just a symptom of what is happening in the region. That's the first point. The issue where people would have been more excited, because if you go into areas like that, the issue, because they are mostly farmers, so they would have loved to see how they get support for their farming activities. Even issues of quote unquote planting for food and jobs where fertilizer and other things are brought to the place to help, the inputs are brought to help them to survive, are purely done on political basis. And so you need to show...
The fertilizers, you're telling me the fertilizers.
Yes.
I mean, I know about premixed fuel and all that. The fertilizers are distributed on partisan... No, I'm just saying that that's another...
Yeah.
But you're saying fertilizers are distributed on partisan lines.
Partisan lines. They are distributed on partisan lines.
But how do they identify this farmer is an NDC farmer, this farmer is an NPP?
You see, Bongo is not Accra. You see, in Bongo, everybody knows everybody. Look, as I said, if I enter into Bongo, if I meet the first 10 people, I can tell everybody in the political party the person belongs to. Because we are that connected. It's not like in the city where you don't even know your next, but somebody that you share a wall with, you don't even know the person's name. But in such settings, you know everybody. And unfortunately, you have situations like this. So if you ask me what is happening in Bongo, the only thing we are afraid of, and I'm just hoping that we take very serious steps to prevent it, is that Bongo is one of the areas where we have found very large deposits of gold. And so
large deposits of gold.
Gold, yeah, in Bongo. It's one of the areas.
So this will be one of the new
discoveries. And the fear I have is that what we're experiencing in the south may move there. I recently, when I was coming from Bolga to Tamale to board a flight, the white Volta, which ordinarily, usually you used to see it being clean because we get the water straight from Burkina Faso, clean. Currently, it's beginning to be looking like going to any shop and buy a milkshake.
Is there any illegal mining activity?
Gradually, yes. That is creeping in the north. And until, if we are not careful, that's going to mess us up as a people. So that is the only, and I have said this, I've spoken to Matne Isi. I'm talking of what's the name? The Chief Executive of the Minerals Commission on that, issues like that, that we must take a serious, that what is happening predominantly in the south is not moved to the north, or else our food basket will be in trouble.
Galamsey is one of the things we want to talk about, and we'll discuss that in a bit. But I'm just curious to know, you're both members of parliament, but when he was talking about what's happening in his constituency, talked about roads and how construction has been done and things are progressing, and you were saying, well, you seem like you're talking about the challenges that you have. Some resources are being distributed along party lines. What are you doing about it? You're a member of parliament. What
can you do about it? And I'll tell you. You see, Adomako knows what I'm talking about. What can I do about it?
So what did he do differently?
Let me give you a typical example. I've asked God knows how many times routes, specific routes. Now the current roads minister, I don't know what he bet, let me use the former minister, Amakwata. He will come and say, I can assure you that the contractors will come. That's the end of the story. And just because people do not even value our, what we call the Assurance Committee of Parliament. You know, the Assurance Committee of Parliament is meant to say, if, for example, you promise as a government official that you are going to do A, B, C, that after a period, you give timelines, the committee has the power to summon you and bring and say, what have you done, X, Y, Z.
We've seen the work of the Assurances Committee. I don't think it's living up to that expectation.
Yeah, no. The reason why it's not living up to the expectation is that you even invite the ministers and they don't come. They don't come. Adomako is here. You know, he's a very honest guy. He'll tell you. They don't come. They don't care who you are. They don't come. And they will give flimsy reasons why they are unable to come. So that is one. So you can say it, but you see, you do not control the budget. You do not control, you approve it, but the implementation of it, and then the expenditure, you are not the spending officer. So if the minister says, I cannot do it, he will tell you that, look, I am faced with equally competing needs from various communities. And you say, check and see. And I say it because just about 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Kumasi for about 11 days for something else. You see currently what the government is doing is that even the projects that they are in a hurry to finish, to see whether they can make some impact, they are looking at centers where they think in previous elections and data suggest that they could make some votes. And so you see in those, they are very selective. So if you come to a place like Bongo, they can't be worried because they know that predominantly the people vote NDC since 1992. You see the area of Upper East, every year, every election year, NDC wins. And so they would want to see, okay, I have these resources, where do I take it to? I'll take it to Anyaswotu, where they think that...
Limited resources.
Okay, they are limited resources.
But
okay,
Mr.
so
Bawa,
you say limited resources.
I'm just trying to get to the point that you cannot continue to just say that's what's happening, and so we just twiddle our thumbs.
Let me tell you, you were a journalist, aren't you?
I wanted to ask
no, you were a journalist, isn't it? You sat here and campaigned on galamsey. You, in fact, spent hours and hours of airtime talking about galamsey. You brought government officials and policymakers to talk about galamsey. That is the extent to which you can do. Beyond that, you can't do anything.
There's more.
What can they do? Because they are not the implementing officers.
I'll add it.
They are not the people.
Let me introduce the element of lobbying. Of course, though technically per the Constitution, but you've moved away from that rule and you are agents of development now. You lobby. But we also know that, yes, like you've painted, sometimes there are partisan lines, and especially in an electoral year, an administration would focus on the areas where it thinks it can make gains or consolidate its strongholds. Yeah. So you may bleed. Beyond lobbying, you also have your common fund, which is a drop in a bucket. That is, even if it comes for a little work, it can't build roads, it can't build hospitals. Then you have, let me introduce this element, which also feeds into his rhetoric. Especially when the president, like when he met the purported family members of Atta Mills. You remember?
And those
and then he says,
and
I've even not brought development. That's why I said purported. I said purported.
Fake representatives of
Let's keep it there. Then he says, and you people, I gave you your MP, I gave him a ministerial position and you ousted him. And that's why I'm not even paying attention. I'm not developing. You see, then it paints a certain
if I can come in.
poor picture. I think on this, we can just settle on this so that we can get into, Sweetie will usher us into the main issues.
Okay, so there's one thing that I think some of us need to work on after exiting Parliament, and that is that I believe that there should be an X amount of roads or infrastructure per constituency, regardless of who is in government.
That's a good proposal.
And I really think that if every constituency is entitled to 10 kilometers, regardless of who is in power, a lot of the time we spend with road ministry will be reduced. I mean, I would not have to necessarily go to road ministry because, excuse me, if you don't even go there, you are entitled to that 10 kilometers.
And I would even go ahead to say that maybe let's not restrict it to 10 kilometers per constituency, because your constituency, for example, one of the largest, huge population. Yes. What was the population of your constituency?
Just roughly about 100,000.
About 100,000.
Over 350,000.
Look at Ashaiman and look at its roads. So maybe it even ought to be equitable in that. And some constituencies, you may have it even small, but there are pockets. You find one here, the next one you are seeing is around the mall. So, the next one you are... So all of these must be taken into
equity part is what I'm coming with, is in the fact that if all constituencies, year-on-year basis, are entitled to a certain kilometers of road quota, then, and that can appease the electorates so that we can then be freed up to do some real legislative work. And I think that this is something, as we're exiting, that is something we can still work on. A bill, and we can apply this to many of the things that are due constituencies.
Health.
So health, you're entitled to, if it's a one-stop shop health center, we make sure that this goes across. And this will be a developmental agenda,
Actually,
you know,
Adomako,
for and
the
police
state
stations.
principles. What the principles of state policy? What do we call it in the
Directive
constitution?
principles
The
of
directive
state-
principles of state policy.
The strengthening of it.
This is it.
Listen, this is why we
essence of
have
it
to- we
is
have to
what is
strengthen
captured
it.
in the constitution.
But he's talking about what is there,
If
the
this
letter
is
versus
done,
its application.
then the implementers are restricted. And just like many other things, I mean, you know, if you, and this is one thing that I don't like about Ghana, let me be very categorical here. In the US, for instance, all phone numbers are tied to various zip codes, and your taxes you pay by mobile data and all that are used for the local area.
Okay.
So imagine my constituency, look at the volume of people there, based on just the taxes I get from mobile phone usage, can improve and enhance my area relative to yours.
Because,
And
it's
that is
federalism, because that is part of it is because of this type of governance that is running.
I mean, it will also help because how can Anyang Sotun with huge numbers get the same quote-unquote common fund as, you know, Bongo?
You can use that.
All right,
No,
gentlemen,
I'm just saying.
let's get into that. Let's get, yeah.
You know?
1, 2, 3. But you see what you just
But-
mentioned.
Yeah, I agree
This
with
will
you.
be the final bit. You see what you just
It
mentioned.
has to be looked at.
You were referencing the directive principles of state
State
policy,
policy.
and I referred you to chapter 6. Even if you read that portion, chapter 6, when you go down to 35:3, right? It says the state shall promote just and reasonable access by all citizens to public facilities and services in accordance with the law.
Law.
These things are there, but do we see them happen?
We need to implement it and do it.
It looks like our
say we
problems,
need to-
all our problems in this country stem from implementation because we have the policies, we
Yeah.
have the laws, we have the regulations. And that brings us to galamsey because,
Yeah.
Mr. Bawa, you even started with that. Ghana Water Company Limited has said to us that they are unable to supply water because they're spending more to clean the water for us. And in fact, a documentary produced by Richard Kojonyako showed that when you take they showed a certain volume of water that was fetched from the river, and about 2/3 of it was covered in silt. It was just a third of that quantity of water that was pure. And so we are struggling to supply water. Fishermen are coming back with empty nets and dead fishes. Galamsey is not a doyen. It's not something that just started today. Many stalwarts would argue that it's a lack of political will to actually fight this. What I want to hear from you is your arguments of where this government and previous governments have overpromised and underdelivered in the fight against galamsey. And then we get to what we can do about it. I'll start with you, Doc.
Myself?
Yeah.
Well, let me say that I'm very passionate about good, clean water. And I think that it is rather unfortunate. And I talk as a Ghanaian more so than necessarily being MPP today. Because water goes into homes, not just MPP homes, but all Ghanaians' homes. And I think that we need to, one, be very clear in our mind that we really understand the gravity or enormity of this problem. I've said in many places that the galamsey issue is Ghana's drug issue. And when you go to Mexico, they are not done dealing with the drugs. But you need a very special attention to this. And let me add that, unfortunately, you send quote-unquote military and police people out there, and they are influenced by the wealth in this industry. So are we going to rather change the caliber or the kind of remuneration we give to our law enforcement people who handle galamsey issue? That is one very crucial thing, because in the other parts of the world, the drug enforcement unit, though they are with the police, their remunerations and the checks and balances are such that, they have to be very careful. Because, if your drug enforcement unit is bought by a drug campaign, you are finished.
Yeah.
So what the state and all of us need to be mindful of is that, one, the law enforcement, the legal arm, and what I mean by that is the judges who sit on mining issues have to be very well compensated so that they are not influenced. And until we...
Compensated?
By the state. And this thing is a very important way we get this fight going, because by and large, a lot of our machines, what I mean by is state and law enforcement people who go there, and pardon me for being as truthful as it is, I can easily be enticed looking at the kind of monies that these galamseyers make. I mean, if you hear the quantums, I can easily be bought, and the chiefs can easily be bought. I mean, I heard one man say that since he's been doing cocoa farming for ages,
right? I remember
never seen that kind of money, and he gives his entire cocoa farm to the galamseyers. If they want to dig another cocoa farm that he has, he will gladly give it away. And listen, that has become the reality, and that's why Ghana now has dropped in terms of our ranking with cocoa production. And from an economic standpoint, if a ton of gold gives you X amount of money and a ton of cocoa gives you X amount of money, listen, the ordinary guy on the street, I mean, he's hustling. It's a no-brainer. He'll go for the gold. After all, that one is baking crying. And what I mean by baking crying is it's not farming where you have to wait for your crops to grow and then get your yields.
Cash down.
This is cash and carry.
But I have a quick follow-up for you. You said something, and I want to bring you back to it. You said, I can easily be bought. The chiefs can easily be bought. Yeah. I understand the reality of where we are economically and how easy it is for people to pander on these things. But you're a member of parliament. You are primus inter pares on so many layers and levels. You represent, 300,000 plus people.
Yes.
If you are bought, then it means the whole constituency is bought. And
that is why...
So should it be that easy? Because we know the chiefs are getting bought. Someone was asking, was it yesterday, that, but when the cars are bringing these, heavy machinery and the rest, why don't people see that these things are coming? Doesn't the chief see that, in my backyard, someone is using an excavator? Is the chief blind? Is the Queen Mother blind? So... But why is it so easy, and how can we deal with this?
So as I'm saying, first of all, we need to admit we have a crisis, and it's very important that what I'm saying with regards to the appropriate compensation to people who we are going to devote to illegal mining activities are, well endowed, and not just the endowment, because when it comes to the Drug Enforcement Unit, they are checking every kobo that goes into that person's account. So once you are employed to deal with mining, you the officers, there are about 10 officers checking on you.
How about those who keep it at home?
No. I mean, listen. The thing is that you the officer, if there are 10 people monitoring your activities, you dare not. Anyway. You dare not. And I really think that until we get to that level where we see this as a cancer, and it is a cancer because the activities of mining is going to increase or has already increased the cancer cases in this country and is a huge burden on us. Right. Listen, the mercury is causing havoc, and as for the death toll with regards to those who die on site based on bad mining equipment, exposure, cyanide, all of that, that is one bit, and I really think that it's unfortunate that well-educated people are not appreciating the true challenges, because I mean, listen.
You've used two words to describe it: a cancer and then it's a crisis. So as we speak right now. We left the fight to leadership. It appears leadership couldn't complete or give us the results we wanted. So CSOs, individuals, citizens have stepped in. As we speak, there's a call on the president to treat this as an emergency situation. There's a call for a ban, complete ban on all small-scale mining activities temporarily to reassess how we can restructure to ensure that this canker that you say, eating at the fiber of this nation, can be solved.
So
where do you sit on that call? Yesterday we engaged, I think, the General Secretary of the small-scale miners, and they were vehemently disagreeing that there shouldn't be a ban because then some people will be put out of business. And, you know, small-scale mining is not illegal mining, trying to make those differentiations. But where do you sit on that call? Should the president actually declare a state of emergency so that we can fix or tackle the situation head-on? And then we'll come to Bawa.
I think that, listen, job creation has been looked at. Government has provided some ways and means to empower small-scale miners. But you get the miscreants, the boys who would want to venture. And what I mean by that is that, you know, local boys who, you know, feel that the earth is theirs and they can go and do whatever. And when you look at some of the videos, you know, because of social media, young boys can say things that I couldn't have said several years ago and have serious decay in terms of respect for authority, respect for the earth. And you see, I think our culture too has to be looked at. When I look at the Asian culture a little bit, I mean, you know, the Japanese and how they respect nature, the yin and the yang, those things, we may have to go back to it and imbibe into people that respect for Yanara Yasase, you know, that song, that respect for it. And when I say this, that the painful thing is that very well-educated people in this country who I thought would be the ones, the guardians for this nation, somewhat have disappointed us. And I will stretch this to the Ramsar site, you know, where, excuse me, and this is me doing what I shouldn't do, but I'm an environmentalist at heart. You know, places that are reserved worldwide for birds and for nature,
flora, fauna,
have been taken over. And I know that when I go there, you see top military people, top governmental people, top judiciary people. So then I ask myself that question as an ordinary Ghanaian, as an ordinary citizen, that, these are the people who are supposed to guard this country against all these things. And listen, elsewhere, people bequeath millions of dollars to preserve land. So what is
Doug,
different about us?
So, Doug, the more people add their voices to this call, the more pressure we mount on the president, then maybe we have a chance to actually, you know, tackle this head-on. Where do you stand? Should we declare state of emergency and ban all illegal mining or small-scale mining activities so that we can do a reassessment and just figure out how we want to approach
the reassessment is not needed. We know the solutions. I believe that banning is an archaic ways and means. What we need to do is to, one, empower appropriately so that the appropriate technologies are used for mining. When the appropriate technologies are used for mining, this damage to water bodies will reduce. And I believe that, you know, as a risk government also has to take. Maybe government needs to go full vim into mining and then employ these boys who would have rather gone and done mining on a small scale level. And that needs to be looked at. And then in concluding, let me add that all the revenues from mining, a huge amount of that now, if I was president, will dedicate straight to Ghana Water Company. I mean now, because
no ban for you then.
Because the solutions are there. Because listen, when you ban, it's like banning alcohol in Chicago. People then even were making more money from illicit alcohol sales. So when you put a ban, you even rather make the criminal activity more attractive for some people, some bad boys like Bongo and things like that. When
you say bad boys like Bongo or bad boys
so I can't use Bawa, you know. So my thing is that looking at other things that were banned in the past and the fact that people would still engage in it, And mind you, when you do it, then the gold pricing will be so high, and those who go in will go in.
Doc, fine. Let me come to Edward Bawa. I know I've seen you taking a look at, some of what the Fourth Estate released to us recently, and I see that
you're not supposed to be copying.
You've paid particular. No, I would have gone there anyway. So you've paid particular attention to certain names.
Okay.
But for you, this ban, is it workable? Yesterday when we spoke to, I believe his name is George Amma, he made mention of the fact that we had enforced a similar ban during the COVID period, briefly, and per his view, it didn't yield much for small-scale miners. But the GMA is also saying that let's have a blanket ban and then regularize so that we pick out those who are doing the right thing and those who are not. This is your area. What is your take on it? Ban or no ban?
Thank you very much. I will come and speak to that specifically. But let me also state very clearly that as a Ghanaian, I'm scared. I'm scared because I'm not too sure exactly where I will go and what type of drink, what I will drink. So it is not, I had this friend, a doctor friend of mine, who was talking about a clinic just by his area. Then he talked about why policymakers must ensure that these clinics are well, they should have some basic equipment because you are not too sure when you will be there and collapse. And that they will need to resuscitate you before they take you even to a bigger hospital where you can pay. In the same way, you don't know where you will be. And then you will have to drink water. You will create an impression. That way you will buy, quote unquote, what we call the pure water. Yeah. My brief experience at FDA, where I worked before long ago, tells you that these, what do you call it, supposed pure water, some of them
are not pure.
And so I am scared as a Ghanaian that this is where we have got into. That's the first point. Two, I hear, and that is so sad for kids who are yet to be born and who have been born freshly. Yeah. I saw the
Professor Sampene.
Yeah, I even saw this thing that was done by Erasmus, I think a year or something, about kids being born with some deformities.
No, but that's what happens.
Yes. Two, yesterday I listened to Professor York, one of the executives for GMA, talk about the fact that they've made some analysis of the placenta after kids have been born. Yeah. And you see the content of it, and you realize that this is a direct link to illegal mining. That is the danger in which we find ourselves. So it is a crisis that we all have to look. It is not just about the Ghana Water Company issue, about 40%, they now can do only 40%. Ghana Water has its own challenge. In fact, if you read the NDPC report, minus even galamsey, they can account for about 54% of the water they produce. That's another problem we can deal with. But if you look at it beyond just the Ghana Water Company issue, it is almost like you just see a train moving towards you, and you will have to take a decision. Either you should jump away or you stand for the train to crash you. That's the way we find ourselves. Two, you say that a ban. That's the question you came to. Look, let's put this in within the right perspective. If you look at the mining industry, for all resources, whether it is mining, it is whatever, we have always indicated that we want to have value retention because that is how the country develops. That's how people get jobs. If you look at the mining industry, for the large-scale mining companies, like the Goldfields and what have you, they are foreign companies. They are foreign companies. Where you see Ghanaians operate is what we call the small-scale mining, because that is reserved for Ghanaians. Most of the people who are calling for ban, I hear, for example, I read and I laughed over it. The how do you call it again? Christian Council. Yeah. They said you should ban galamsey. I mean, it is a redundant statement to make. Galamsey is a crime. So there's no need, it's like saying ban.
I think the intent of it was ban small scale.
It's a yes. So if you say ban galamsey, it's redundant because it's already a crime. Two, so when you begin to start talking about that, then we need to take a second look at these small scale mining companies. These are people who have gone for loans. Now, if you look at the interest rates now, it's roughly about 30-something%. The person takes it, and then you ban the person. And then over the period, the person has to service this loan. it becomes a problem. You are creating even more hardship for the people who are already suffering from that. So that may not necessarily be the way to go. But we are all running away from where the problem is. That is the issue. We are running away from where the problem is. We all know where the problem is.
Where is the problem?
Look, when let's take armed robbery. We all know as a country that armed robbery is a crime. And usually when these people are caught, if they don't catch them and they engage in fighting, they kill them and nobody even investigates that in this country because they see it as a high crime. When they are arrested, they are punished. Nobody has sympathy for them. I have seen even Attorney General nominees go before vetting committee and advocate for death penalty for armed robbers. I've seen it in this country, in vetting committees, in parliament. And so that's a crime. If we were to treat galamsey, like armed robbery, we will not have this problem.
But
let me make a point.
Interestingly,
yes.
Napo, today one of the papers captures it, and it's here. It says, galamseyers are Ghanaians. We won't shoot to kill them.
Yeah, so why?
Just because you mentioned this.
And I'm going to explain to you. And I understand where he's coming from. And I will tie into his comment. You see, the armed robber comes, if you take people like those who go to steal the plantain and other things, and they come and say, and people tend to draw a very good, even though it's all stealing, just a different form of stealing. I don't want to use an arm, the other one goes and says that, look, I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But you see, people see not just the fact that you take the property, but the threat even to the life of the person who is being robbed becomes also an issue for discussion. In this particular case, it's the same thing. It's a threat to even our very existence. That is why I am equating it to the issue of armed robbery.
Okay.
And see, the reason why the police have or maybe let's say the security services have the free hand to fight armed robbery is because everybody has agreed that that's a bad thing to do. And so people who are supposed to take decisions in those things are not involved in it. So I'm not expecting, for example, a political appointee to take a gun to go and then be an armed robber. So they are not involved in it. So the security men...
Or to place a lot of calls when an armed
robber is called.
Is called.
Yes.
Yes. Let the person go.
So you don't have
But in Galamsey, you see that.
So it is not also because the security men are not properly enumerated or compensated, as my brother wanted to say. It is because the operators within that particular industry
have backing from
the political edition. And yes, you are right. I was looking at the Fourth Estate investigations. And these are things like, it's like when we're in primary school, usually, you are in sections, red, gold, those. If blue section, we lose it. Maybe I say this week, blue in the rear. If there's a strong boy within the blue, and they say blue in the rear, you can say it. If you say blue away, you see where you pass and go home. He will meet you on the way and beat you. Because of that, everybody knows who and who are involved in this. And nobody say anything. Look.
So you agree that it's a lack of political will?
And let me make a point. You see, and I'm going to go to that point. You see, this issue of Fourth Estate is not new. I'll give a typical example. Because I had occasion, because I served on the Mines and Energy Committee until recently when it was decoupled. Because of our restructuring, our mining is standing on its own. So I served on that for about 7 years, on that committee. When the report came that Akonta Mining Company, which is owned by the regional chairman of the NPP, was involved in some mining activities in the forest, and that actually he had applied to the Minerals Commission. You remember the initial reaction that came from both the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and the Minerals Commission about the fact that they had not approved something. I subsequently asked Mr. Martin Ebisi at a committee meeting that I have heard, I have read this story. He is the regulator of the sector. What is his position on it? He said, as far as they know, they have not issued any license to Akonta. I said, fine. Beyond that, Martin Kpebu and his group have made further investigation, gone to see the activity being done in the Nimiri forest or whatever you call it. Yeah. And they have reported to the police. What do you say about it? His answer was that falls under Forestry Commission because it's in the forest. If you have a government that is not committed to even preserving. Let's even say that they are mining even in areas that have not been given concessions.
Forest reserves.
You have a government that deliberately comes to Parliament in 2022 November and promulgates an LI that says that you have the chance to go into the forest and start cutting down for the sake of mining.
Reserves.
Reserve, because the LI 20, yes,
forest reserves.
Yeah, because you should see the LI,
I think that thing is one of the most, I'm sorry, bogus, mind-boggling things that I've ever heard.
The LI
While
24,
others are protecting
yes.
Ramsar sites and forest reserves, even look at the recent talk about the Achimota forest. And you see, just on Newsfile this past weekend, again, Erastus Asaridonko and the discussions there, Akonta Mining getting caught violating the government's buffer zone policy at the Tano River. And I asked myself, I'll just say this. We can play all the games we want. I was sharing with you yesterday, sweetie, how in the Netherlands, the last time I was there, people were telling me that they can drink tap water. They don't need to buy any bottled water. Tap water, clean enough, hygienic, healthy, without any side effects. Tap water. I dare not do that in Ghana. I dare not. And to make it worse, forget even the areas where the tap flows. Because nowadays, we struggle, and we know it's part of these. How many times do I get water in maybe a month or so? So I have to harvest water. But recently, I went into the eastern region. I was heading towards the Safari Valley, about a kilometer or two. We saw, so it's sort of like an under-bridge sewage system or whatever. Do you know that that was what people had lined up with gallons and bowls, and they were fetching to go and use for their household? I mean, you see these things, but we saw this physically, and we were in shock. You see it in many places, especially up north and all of that. Imagine, as for the places where there's the tap flows, imagine the places that don't even have those systems and have to rely on those, and what will happen to them.
Look, so in the north, so you take the north.
In the face of all this, you both say that the ban will not do anything. So in the immediate, I mean, right now as we speak, how do we get these illegal mining activities and small-scale mining activities that are near or on water bodies and near in our forest reserves to halt, so that at least the damage can be reversed?
Look,
I'm talking about temporary.
One
we cannot
option,
ban it forever, because of course we can't leave the minerals in the ground while we are suffering and poor. So we need to get the minerals out. But in the moment, we are facing a crisis, and you both agree. But you're saying that a ban will not do us good? Briefly, and then we move on to other things.
I think we need to learn from the Californias and the Colorados.
The gold rush and everything.
In the sense that, this is not new to the world. People go, but the technology that is used needs to be brought to the local boys. And that is where government has to invest. So that, forgive me, I mean, we need to empower the young guys, though they want to engage in mining. We need to empower them with the appropriate tools so that they can do a better, proper job, not with the dynamites, not with the damage to water. Because the water really comes in the processing, where they have to wash.
And some of them are doing it in the river bodies. But,
yes.
but you see, I disagree with you slightly. Here's why. You remember the gold catcher thing?
Correct.
Gold catcher. And we were even claiming it was Ghanaian when it was actually made in South Africa. But how much does it cost? And how much did we claim it was costing? Even when we said we're bringing them in to distribute. You must know about that. So even there, where you are claiming that, the gold catcher equipment system is a better system so that you don't engage in all this pollution, you can identify and all of that. We are milking the state. I mean, I
still think that we will move on, but I really think that the technology that the boys are using needs to be improved. And I really think that is something that government needs to look at. Because as part of all of this, if these young guys have a better processing arrangement, or what we can do is that government may have to have depots where they can process and make sure that the yields go based on what they get from what you bring. I know they are trying this community, mining concept, but it's still not catching on as it should, because people don't want to do regularization and all of these things. Look, it is costly.
I'll just tell you. You see, everything is leadership. Everything is leadership. Yeah. If, for example, you have a president who hinges his presidency on such a thing, and then your own officials, appointing of officials, are named in situations like this, and that's the least I expect from you. That you say, look, I'm hinging my presidency on the fight on the galamsey. You may say that, oh, the fight is too enormous. But when you're appointing officials, appointed officials are
alleged,
are named. The least you can do is that, yes, let's say it's alleged. The least you can do is to get them to stand aside.
Look what Asantehene did with those three chiefs. He just
them.
removed them. He said it will not be under his watch. You destroy the land.
You have the AMA boss being named in a distance, and the person still has a job this morning, and nobody cares about it. And when you ask him, he will tell you how he has been successful. We spend millions and millions of cedis on this tree planting exercise that we do, which is yet to be audited anyway.
Who in the last tree planting were advocates.
Advocates. Spending millions. And they're the same people who are doing the same thing.
We must pay attention to what the president says. He says, no, you can't just accuse these people. We must, apply the rule of law, and we must let the law work. And we must, let the law so that we get to the bottom of it and know that, have you caught the person in galamsey? Have you caught the person doing anything?
Leadership is saying
he's fighting galamsey.
It's not about the person. It's not just about the person committing the crime. The person must not position himself or herself in such a way that people have doubts about his leadership in that particular area. So yes, the person may not be directly or maybe falsely accused, but you have positioned yourself in a way that seems to compromise the cause for which your president is charging, as it were. And so even just with that, you can be asked to,
Gentlemen, it's 87 days to elections. And there are some connected issues here about how some politicians depend on the money from galamsey and other, so that they can fund the election activities. But it appears there are three parties at play at the center of the issues that have come up in the build-up to December 7th elections. There's the Electoral Commission. Then there's one party or one group of people who believe that the Electoral Commission's integrity has come under question. And so they are demanding certain things to be done, like a forensic audit into the voter register and all that. And then there's another group of people who say the EC is doing well. Nobody should interfere in their processes. What was the word that the Attorney General used yesterday? Nation wreckers. And, so there's these three parties at play. I want to know what you think about, one, the EC's credibility and integrity and their ability to handle December 7th elections credibly, and whether or not you support the call that for the sake of transparency and for Ghanaians, really, for the peace of mind that we need going into this election, whether or not they should just agree and conduct this forensic audit, because the NDC is set to demonstrate on the 17th of this month to force the hands of the Electoral Commission, so to speak, to do this. I'll start with you, Doc.
Okay. So I'm always of the school of thought that no serious-minded party will depend on a referee for a win. In that case, no serious-minded party will depend on the Electoral Commission for a win. And I can cite many examples. The last example I can really pick on is the fact that under the Mahama administration in 2016, in as much as people thought that Mahama was in bed with Charlotte, not literally, but
yeah, we get the point.
Charlotte could not make a call for the NDC because the win was so glaring, so clear, that any quote-unquote idiot can see the gap and say that 1 million votes, nothing I can do about it. So I believe that it is erroneous, even for me as MPP, to be dependent on the Electoral Commission at this point in time, Jean Mensah, on December 7th, to produce votes for me. It'll be very wrong. Very, very wrong. So,
just a quick interjection before you go on. Maybe not depend on the Electoral Commission, but in terms of its MO, its modus operandi, and how it conducts.
I'm building my case.
That is where the devil is.
I'm building my case. So my key thing here is that, one, I don't think that the Electoral Commission will always be appearing to be fair to all parties. It's impossible. There are policies that she wanted to bring that some MPP people were opposed to. They are the same policies that some NDC people were in support of.
Like what?
Which policy? I mean, listen, let me cite one example. Many of the MPP parliamentarians were of the opinion that using just one identity would not help us. I mean, people have passports. They might not have Ghana card. They have Ghana card. They might not have a passport. I mean, so it is erroneous in this biometric age to necessarily demand just one form of identification. So not all of us were in support of that. We thought that there would be a better day, a brighter day for that to happen. And always also thought about the fact that the onus of Ghana card, ramping up their production because of election was going to be a wrong thing in terms of cost to the state. So I'm happy that that LI or that instrument was, shut down. There are many other things that later on the NDC and NPP all agreed to. And I think Omanebo Wama, am I mistaken, from the NDC, even agreed to the mode of operations moving forward. So case in point, one, we hope and would push that the Electoral Commission is as transparent, as credible, and as fair so that every vote counts. And that is all we political parties can preach and push for. Beyond that, your own party needs to have an appropriate machinery to be able to call. Afarijan's...
To call what? The election?
The election. I mean, Afarijan's...
but political parties are not supposed to do that. It's actually illegal for a political party.
Let me make my point in the sense that Afarijan says that... speak. Yeah, Afarijan says that elections are won where? At the polling station or center. Now, the key thing here, I mean, Joy, you know that the December 2020 elections, you had your results because you were also collating. MPP had their results, they were collating. One party I wouldn't mention, up to date, I don't know what their collated figures are because they went to court rather asking the court to provide...
I'll mention it for you. You are referencing the NDC.
The collation figure.
Bongo
and it was reduced. Collation was reduced to coffee or biscuits, unfortunately. So I think that my recommendation, and this is me advising the NDC at no cost, do the right thing, make sure that you can collate well, so that when the loss comes, you are clear in your seats, and do not come and say that, that favorite word, right, which one of them said, we are in a comfortable lead, when clearly we're not in a comfortable lead. But it's one of the famous quotes, right, when you've performed so poorly, 1 million gap, and then you come and say that we're in a comfortable lead. So that guy actually even has to be sued by the EC.
Be that as it may, that elections are won at the polling stations. Mm-hmm. There are certain mechanisms or certain facilities and procedures in place, mm-hmm, that when you get it wrong, the confidence of the people and the other political parties is eroded in the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be independent. Yeah. And the issue started from the attempt to abolish indelible ink, wrong figures, announcements of wrong or discrepancies in the figures that the EC had provided.
So let me help you.
Hold on. There's been a number of issues. The current one is that there are issues with the provisional voters register, right? They themselves have come out. Dr. Bosman Asari himself said it was an honest mistake. So if you say it was an honest mistake, how do you correct it and ensure that you restore the confidence of the people back in this commission, which is entrusted to lead us to the December 7th polls, so that this nation comes out victorious?
So if you're a data analyst, which I've done in my previous life, in fact, you know, I did a lot of numbers, economics is numbers. And if you believe in Edward Deming, who's like the authority on quality assurance in the world, you know, then you'd come to appreciate that in any production, there are errors. And in electoral commission's work, there'll be clerical errors, administrative errors. There's no way that there's every name spelled correctly on the electoral commission's database. It's impossible. Even in the German, you know, Germany, when you go through their airports, my goodness, they are too careful. Even that, people slip through their system. My point I'm making here is that, listen, there will be issues with the Electoral Commission, regardless of NDC being in power, MPP being in power. It doesn't mean that we should say that out of maybe 100 data points, if there are 2 data points in error, that means the whole system is crashing. No, that would be very wrong. In any production line, you know, if it's even cocoa drink production, some of the sachets will be empty. And it happens if you go to a production line today. It will happen that out of maybe 1,000,
Doc, and where I'll start from Edward Bawa with is not that there's a perfect system. Nowhere is there a system that is perfect. But how close or far from perfection is the system? That is the problem. Some of the mistakes that have been made by the Electoral Commission are egregious. And you know why people are so, you could say, are hell-bent on saying that the EC must get things very right as much as possible because of some of these errors. For the first time, one election, 2020. How many times did we call the election? How many times did we have...
Let me come in there.
And some of what has followed in limited voters registration and everything. That is what is scaring people. It is not about...
Let me address
there's a
that
system
issue,
that is foolproof.
Let me address that issue. Listen, if we'll be truthful to ourselves, when Afarijan calls elections, the next day, the data always changes. This is Afarijano, because at the time of calling, new information comes. But when he's calling, he knows that the changes will not be monumental to change the outcome of the election. And it is erroneous for somebody to say that, unless that Jean Mensah called NDC won, and then later on came to say MPP won. That is a different thing. But the key question is that, listen, I remember in 2004 for Alliance Otum, once our numbers came, it was done deal everywhere that MPP had won. And at that time, when Afarijan made the call, other places' numbers were not in. So I believe that, listen, and let me even add,
because
with the American
situation
system,
is not exactly the same.
No. Wait. Even in the American
complete
system,
that point, because when
they call, the vetted numbers are different. About 2 months after the election.
That point you're making, I don't think that's the crux of the matter.
A projection of an election, for example, assuming that, and using your example, that there were some police stations that had not come. Yeah, they can look at it and make a projection. So the numbers
and make a call.
Change. That's not what they're talking about. When you have a situation where you have the composite number, the total number, and then...
Not verified, though. Not verified number.
And who verified it?
And the EC, mind you, when they put out, and I'm making this very data-sensitive, impression on Ghanaians that, listen, when the numbers come in today and it's not verified, you wait for verified numbers. If that one has an issue, fine.
No, thanks for those points.
Yes.
Let me come to Edward Bawa, because that's one of the points you're making. And that's what I was going to tell you. There are two different issues. They are not necessarily what you're saying. But your side has claimed, for example, that in some instances, over 200,000 votes or paddings have happened, if you like. That in some areas you see and added 3,000, 5,000, and all of that, different from the data you have. You constitute this, and it's over 200,000, which could shape an election, a presidential election. Tell us about your concerns when it comes to the EC and how it's conducted its work.
So thank you very much. Let me first state that what we have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. But at least it is sufficient enough to ask the EC to listen to our side of the story and ask for a forensic audit of the register. For example, we have realized that, remember that just before the exhibition, the NDC had put pressure on what they call it,
EC.
the EC, to give us the provisional register, because we needed to see what the register looked like, so that when people are then going into it, we can check that. It was only given to us the night before the election, before the exhibition. Even with that limited period, we were able to, for example, realize that about 244,000 names who had been transferred in the previous elections, that's the 20 and other things, were added to the 2024 transfer list. That was the first thing that we realized. Two, we realized that about 15,000 plus names were transferred without knowing exactly what their original place of registration was. Anybody, if I'm supposed to transfer my votes from, say, Joy FM, Joy FM to Asempa, I'm using as an example. Basically, you should be able to know that my original transfer was here. So you know the path through which I did that. So about 15,000 plus, we do not have that. You have a situation where almost 3,000 names were transferred. So for example, usually when I transfer my vote, assuming that again to Joy FM, I transfer my vote to, say, another police station, my name will be captured in the absentee voter list. The absentee voter list is made up of two. It's made up of those who have been transferred and special voters. Because on that day, even though they are registered voters, they will not be voting in that particular day. So the absentee list captures those two things. Then you have situations like that. You have situations where even we have corrupted files, that the pictures of the individuals are not there. You have situations where people's names were transferred from one police station in another region to yet another region, another constituency, even without the knowledge of the Electoral Commission. To the extent that the Electoral Commission itself had the cause to suspend the official who was involved. I am giving you these things to say. These were not, and these are all facts that have been admitted by the Electoral Commission. The NDC says, yes, the centrality of the integrity of every election is also hinged on the register that is going to be relied upon. Adomako Kissi and myself have fought many times to see the integrity of the register that is being used in running our primaries. We've done that because it is at the core of the elections. If I go to a polling station and I cannot find my name at the register, at the place, I do not have the right to vote. Or maybe if I am not even qualified to vote and my name is there, then I slip in. So the register is very key. The NDC says, you have admitted this. But as we speak, what is the extent to of this problem? Because this is just what we have, within the short time, we have discovered. So we are
the party,
yes.
Yeah.
And this is things that we have discovered that the Electoral Commission has admitted. And of course, Bossman himself has admitted that in public media engagement. We're saying that on the basis of this, and because we want to have a credible elections, and for a credible elections, we need a credible register, let's have an audit of this particular register. The Abu Ramadan's case is a typical example. The Abu Ramadan's case, he went to court over the issue of the National Health Insurance thing. At the time, the evidence that was provided in court did not show the numbers that were involved. But at least there was some evidence that there were some people who had been registered using the NHIL card. On the strength of that, the Supreme Court asked for an audit of that to expunge those people who were registered, who were captured using that as a source of evidence.
So let me ask you this. What is the end game? It has been made mention of that this wouldn't be the first time we are having such an external audit of our register.
Yes.
In fact, I believe the UNDP assisted us to do something in the past when your side, the MPP, also had concerns. Why not do this now? But what do you hope to achieve with this? Because it will also come at some cost.
So, First, so you need to consider the cost. You say it comes, you ask yourself, the cost of having post-election violence because people do not trust the outcome.
Are you forecasting violence?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the cost of that and the cost of auditing a register, you make that and make a judgment call on that. That's the first thing. Two, what we are saying is that, look, these were things that were brought to the attention of the Electoral Commission. Our point is that if, for example, you audit that, you will be able to, for example, identify the vulnerabilities of the system. What are the vulnerabilities? Because if you have a situation where people can do transfers without the Electoral Commission knowing about it, it is a clear indication of a vulnerability of the system. We will be able to know what are the different vulnerabilities that we have. How do we put in corrective measures to be able to deal with that? Two, we will be able to know the extent, because the Tamale South Pusika case may just be one example of a bigger problem. We will be able to ascertain this, and so at the end of the day, we will all have some level of comfort going into the election. And so that is what we are asking for. And it is nothing. Look, if it's a question of budget, yes, indicate that this is the problem. Let the state say that they do not have money.
Are you willing to fund it? Are you willing to pay for it if
so
the state
let me
says
tell
they
you,
don't have the money?
Look, sweetie,
yeah.
the truth of the matter is that, do you think that the country called Ghana, I know we are broke, and we are seriously broke. Do you think that as a country, if we do know that auditing this register will bring some level of comfort to all the players in the elections come December 2024, do you think that that expenditure will be too much for our budget?
Okay.
Well,
So this is what we're asking for.
You are saying that if you don't get that done, you are hitting the streets on the 17th of this month. Can that compel the EC to do what you wanted to? Will that compel the EC? What will you achieve with that?
So demonstrations, which is legally and constitutionally accepted. One of the primary aims of demonstrations is to put an issue to the front burner. It's one of the reasons for demonstration. Because, for example, if people see people walking on the streets.
Get solutions.
Yeah, you put it on the front burner for people to discuss. Then how? You see, so you.
Edward Bawa.
So the issue is to bring it to the front burner.
Right.
Two, is to also let the Electoral Commission know the government of this issue. You see, they think that it is just a man who has just come to the office to speak, and that he's just been too overzealous. This is the concern of majority of Ghanaians. And we just want to draw the attention of the Electoral Commission to that. Trust me, it's just a normal democratic right we are exercising. It is not to do anything. Because when people hear demonstration, this is what they think. We will make our point on September 17th to drum home the need for this.
Okay.
And we will push the Electoral Commission until they see to this.
Let me quickly bring in this issue about the religious card that the NPP is seemingly playing. So we heard the majority leader a few days ago talking about how the NDC's pushed out their only Muslim leader, which is Haruna Idrisu, and they are the ones presenting. And I mean, yesterday I said this, I mean, in terms of the politics of those statements, it is a masterpiece of campaign speeches, because you need to appeal to a certain group, you need to ensure that you appear inclusive and taking into consideration all the other factors in play. I want to come to you, Mr. Bawa. How do you respond to, or how does it sit with you that the NPP seemingly painting you as a group that is not considering the Muslims in this country? You've pushed out Haruna Idrisu. They are the ones presenting a Muslim flag bearer for the first time. The religious card, really, that's the NPP is playing. How do you respond to that?
It was one of the most irresponsible comments to come from a leader of a house. And it is not different. If you check the current leadership of Parliament from the majority side, they have been known for that. Just 2-3 days ago, something that we condemned in Parliament during the recall of the comments that were made by their whip about the fact that you have polluted water more than us, to the extent that the Bar Association president found the need to create space in his speech to condemn. You have the same thing happening in the leadership. It's so irresponsible. Look, we are a secular state, and our aim should always be on the fact that when people are asked to go into positions, it is meritorious. It is based on factors other than just religion. It is based on factors other than where you come from. It's other than, it's based on your factors that does not necessarily who is your father, who is your mother.
Okay.
So, under the NDC felt that, look, so, and I'll give you a typical example. When Haruna was taken out, I was one of the people who kicked against it. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic.
You kicked against the removal of Haruna as minority leader?
Minority leader. I'm a Christian. My reason for it was that I didn't share the reasons, for example, that maybe the party had in taking him off. But fast forward, there was a compromise that made me understand, okay, going forward, this is the way we should go. Because based on this, we differed in strategies. So it was purely based on strategy. So it is for a minority leader, a majority leader, to have used religion as a basis. Look,
okay.
I'm coming. If we are going to talk about religion, and let's be very careful about that. This is an area that has sent a lot of countries to war.
Yep.
I expect somebody like Afenyomakin to be circumspect when he's touching on that subject. Let's assess people based on what they can do.
You have to hold there for us. Yeah. So he's saying that if you're playing the religious card, it's irresponsible. What do you say?
In fact, I was there when Majority Leader was talking, and I think what really touched me was the fact that he said that with the MPP, regardless of your background, we will accept you, empower you, and give you a chance to leadership. And that was my take-home message. And I really was surprised and touched at the same point about the power behind that message, that regardless of your background, be it religion, be it your parents' occupation or net worth, MPP gives you a chance. So he was talking to the ordinary man on the street or woman on the street, that with the MPP, no matter who you are, if you can perform, we'll ride with you. We'll put our shoulders to the wheel and ride with you. And I think that, for me, that was a very eye-opening.
So why the Haruna angle?
Dr. Adomako Kissi,
why the Haruna angle?
You are not addressing what the question is. Yes, even the majority leader has spoken about where he came from, trying to get into parliament, failing, and now he's majority leader. He said that in the past. That's not what we're addressing. So this dangerous precipice of trying to weaponize religion. And yesterday I made mention of the fact that even in terms of strategy, unless you purely want to appeal to the very base, the grassroots, because you can't use religion to appeal to me, someone like me. My thinking is above that. And if you want to play the religious card, you are looking at 71% plus Christians.
No, he was not playing the religious card.
The Muslim population. And then the chunk of voters that come out of that. Is that a strategy?
He was rather encouraging people who think they don't have hope in the MPP, that regardless of where you're coming from,
regardless of religion
or your poverty level of your parents, the MPP gives you hope. And that was the import of
well, you can communicate, and I'm communicating this to all of you, to tell your leaders, because you see, they say when two elephants suffer or fight, the grass. let me use that. It is the grass that suffers. Guess what? The grass is the rest of us. As for you people, you are in some position of power. Maybe. Hold.
No, I agree with you.
Maybe
of elephants.
If something were happening today, maybe with your passports and all of that, you can quickly exit the country. Guess who will be here?
Exit where?
What, 200 and how many of you plus those in the rest of the executive ministers?
My village, I'll go to.
You are gone.
That's about
if your village is on fire, Dr. Adomako Kissi, you will not go to your village. You will find your way to some other country.
You don't know if I have a banker in my village.
You see? So let's not follow politicians on this thing and religion and
no.
I think the two of us should condemn this.
We will suffer.
My point, which
so you can make your point as to irrespective of your background, you can rise to.
He said that.
But to bring in the Haruna angle and that he's the only Muslim I mean,
okay.
In fact, that's why they say you should address.
That bit of him saying that Haruna was kicked out. Well, as it stands, Haruna truly was kicked out, but it was not based on religion. I mean, based on what you're saying.
So you say that my majority leader, what he said was a gaffe to even bring in that Haruna.
To say the word is
no. What I'm saying is that Haruna, Haruna was
the word gaffe means that normally speaks well. And
let me say this. That I love Haruna.
That is him. That is him.
Okay,
I love him.
Let's get his point.
Akufo-Addo has been an okay replacement. We still want Haruna back.
Okay, so quickly let me put this
like
to
the way
you.
You are playing.
Yesterday,
I
wants to leave here clean.
I'm not Donald Trump to fall to your trap.
And that's one of the end issues I'm going to. This whole bit about the debates, but that's for the end. The Wale situation. Now at least we have Hajia Zuwaira. Zuwaira actually saying that.
She's proven she's mature.
Is it Hajia herself? Because I saw a statement and it came
there's a video. I have a video of her.
I'm not. Why is it that Hajia was not? I just want to know because you are close to the corridors of power.
Yeah.
It's a statement your general secretary, signs, and then she has this thing where they've cut her signature and put at the end. And I was asking myself, why couldn't her office just issue this? What happened?
So let me be very clear about this. I've always said that the most important thing is to get power. Then you can position yourself somewhere and get some job doing. And I think that Larry Ba, like many of us, we know what is in Parliament already. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, is this really even worth it? And I think she got to that level where she just asked herself that, listen.
Someone who has contested twice, all of a sudden she's thinking it's not worth it?
No, I mean, listen, you get to a point where there's a self-realization. It takes people different times to get there. If you listen to the Buddhist trading. So she's come to that epiphany, that realization, that eureka moment that, you know what, I truly want to help Bawumia win this election. And when he wins, I'll have a portion of the cake or I'll have some office to work in. So if that, to bring peace about, I'll just opt out and let...
She spoke on Newsnight yesterday with MFI and Evan. There's something she said, I was looking for it, but thankfully I found it. So she said, why should I hold my party ransom because someone has decided to be a candidate? Is it a person who decides to be a candidate? Is it the constituents, the delegates who put that person in power to be a candidate so that he can contest the elections?
There's another school of thought that the sitting MP should have been maintained. And then the person coming just allowed to
so
sit.
someone decided that it was his turn to be a candidate?
She showed maturity because... politics as it stands, as I sit here, some things are not just about me, it's about my followers. And she needs to recall and then talk to her followers to clamp her down. Because listen, this thing in that area can just trip into a whole different, fight beyond just MPP circles. Because this is two families involved. And there are nitty-gritty issues about this that I think that she's done
issues like the fact that Dr. Mahama is also from the Vice President's office, and this is the Vice President's hometown, and there is some,
and this is the sister.
Maybe handpicking and clout from that end, and a push from there.
And that's
Benjamin, again, why should I hold my party ransom when someone has decided to be a candidate?
So I think that Larry Ba, I take my hats off for her. She's shown that she's a Yawasan 12 our time. She's fought a good fight.
Okay.
And has gone down, in a very respectful way.
Okay.
And I think that
she's lost to the system.
We should appreciate her. And I know for sure that she will not be forgotten in the annals of the history of the MPP.
I don't know whether you have it must be very quick because I just wanted to talk about it.
They are my neighbors, so I need to go. Well, is not far from my place.
But don't extend it. Just go straight to the point.
No, the point I'm just trying to make is I say you will realize that she has been forced to resign. And one of the, I also realized the signature thing there. Two, I know there's not going to be peace. Two of us have contested, so we know what it is. There's not going to be peace there. So it's not going to happen. Three, I think that what happened in Wale Wale is a clear indication of the lack of leadership that Bawumia can exhibit, because this is his own backyard. You see, you are the presidential candidate for the party. You want to unite the party. You are all over the place in Suhum, other places. What's the name of the place?
St. Morrison?
No, the Mami. No. This guy, that managing that lady, that hairdresser who came to Parliament. What's her name again?
Oh,
I see what I'm saying.
Yes, yes. Akwetia. They're all over those places trying to bring peace among candidates who are making. And your own backyard, that involves somebody who was working in your office.
Okay, so your point is
who was working in your office, one being your relative, and you cannot even bring leadership to bear in that area. This is clear indication this man cannot be the leader of Ghana. Forget about it.
I would have thought the gender bit of this would rather encourage the NPP to keep this woman.
Must you go there?
I have to go there.
But you see,
no, I would have thought that you keep Lariba there just because she's a woman.
Women
We just passed the affirmative action bill. How many female members of parliament
they want
do you
peace
have?
at home. Women want peace at home. And that's what she's done. She's exhibited the character of what it takes to be a woman. And I think we should appreciate her for that.
Well, I wouldn't be so much for, I've always said that there must be equality and then there must be equity. And I wouldn't say she must be there simply because she's a woman. She must merit it. But where the scales even for her, or even if, you know, we are bringing in affirmative action, were they in such a way that she was competing on a level playing field, at least from
do you know even one of the things, you know, one of the things that just that happened? But when the issue happened, when they finished the primaries, and then she lost and she went to court. Just at that time, she was removed from her office. She was fired. She was fired.
Must
you can see that they put roadblocks almost everywhere to ensure that she doesn't.
Well,
we have to go, but just these two issues, if you can do a minute each in your wrap-up comments. I do know this is something that really bothers me. Ghanaian students in the UK are being sent back home. Some are being. It's a very frustrating situation. And there's also the debate from yesterday, Kamala Harris, Donald John Trump, and a few things. I didn't watch the whole thing. Some things were interesting.
You can see the way my eyes are. I watched.
You did, eh? Yes. So somebody say, oh, how about Ghana? Should we debate or not?
No. Easy. Okay.
So summary comments, 1 minute. Any thoughts you have on these two, you can bring them in here.
I think I'll go for the Ghanaian students. If you've really ever had the experience of having to study outside the country and you do not have source of your livelihood in terms of stipends and what have you, you don't know where your monies are going to come from. You can't pay your fees. Because in most of these places, you can't even have access to. You can't have access even to the school websites where even assignments and other things are given to you. If you've never
45 seconds left.
Yes. So to have a situation where Ghanaian students, for over 20 months, they have not been given their stipends and their fees have not been paid, to an extent that their president spoke on CTFM, indicating, and excuse my language because of the platform, that you have the female students having to get themselves involved in conduct that is simply unacceptable to our culture, just to be able to survive. When you have a situation like this, and you have a government that sits down here and talks about free SHS, and talks about education as being their cornerstone, and you take Ghanaian students to another person's country for them to lower their moral standard, not because they want to do that, but for survival purposes.
I get the point. Dr. Adomako Kissi, you have less than a minute, actually. Let's go.
Well, I think I'll stick with the plight of our students in foreign countries, not just the UK, because I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Morocco, different places.
And I think that this will be looked at appropriately, and Scholarship Secretariat, which falls under presidency now, would be attended to, I'm sure, through cabinet for us to have a solution.
Well, for those from the UK, unfortunately we have to go, but for those from the UK, that door is closed now. If anything, they have to come back and reapply. And once you are sort of blacklisted, tagged like this, it's well nigh impossible. Gentlemen, thank you.
No, I agree.
Thank you.
You know, the vice president was asked this question. He said they were going to deal with it.
So,
today.
those
That's
who joined
important.
us for this conversation, we have the members of parliament for Bowutuum, that is Edward Bawa, Bongo constituency, and of course, Dr. Dixon Adomako Kissi Anya
Sotum.
constituency.
Hold your gun.
Gentlemen,
Thank you so much
for joining the conversation. Where do we go from here, sweetie?
Oh, sorry.
We have something coming your way, a lot of things actually, but before we go, a gentle reminder that Joy News and an amalgam of professional bodies is organizing a public speaking event on the theme Transformed Individuals Transforming the World, a challenge for the religious community in Ghana. And the speakers are Dr. Philip Engman, Dr. Mrs. Yvonne Irenchua Eseku, Ambassador Sanda Ahmed. But the main speaker for the day is Reverend Dr. Joseph Kofi Entry, moderated by Philip Owusu Bonsu, the host of Ekosi Seng on Asempa FM. And this is happening on the 17th of September, the same day that the NDC are demonstrating against the EC. And it starts at 6:30 p.m. sharp. You don't want to miss it. It's happening at the British Council Hall. And so for more information, please call us on 0244 220 427. And this event is powered by Joy News and Joy FM. We'll be right back with more.
After the demonstration.